So my goal with this podcast is to have fun, to share interesting stories from my experience in car culture, and to have an interactive relationship with other people like myself. So hopefully if this podcast attracts a lot of viewers and listeners, there will be people there willing to share their stories, and I'll get them involved in the process, whether we have to do it by Skype or FaceTime or whatever. These days there are a lot of ways to record content over the internet, and it is my hope to bring you all into this discussion with me at some point in the future. I'm going to talk about a wide variety of topics, mostly from my personal life, but hopefully in time I'll touch on subjects that you are familiar with, and we can have shared experiences and you can take part. My email address is going to be available on YouTube, and you can contact me through YouTube or email me directly. And if there are topics that you want me to talk about, I can, if I have knowledge of them, I'll do that. If it's something I need to research, I might do that. If it's something that you can contribute, then maybe we can make that happen. Mostly I want this to be an opportunity for me to commune with like-minded individuals. Think of it as a virtual car club, if you will. Look for content like best and worst lists, top 10s, retrospectives about particular cars or people or racing series. There will be discussions of random tangential items like car-based movies and music videos, video games, die-cast miniatures, slot cars, and pretty much anything else I can shoehorn into this format. I will occasionally post non-topical episodes. Usually that will be replacement or supplemental material based on some of my other hobbies, RC airplanes or model rockets or some of those things. But those will be few and relatively far between. Okay, format. This is, strictly speaking, a YouTube-based vlog. I will extract the audio from it, and at some point I will have pure audio podcast available for those who want them. But I'm going to focus on making this video first and foremost. I've got a face made for radio, so you will rarely see me on screen, and almost never during live tapings. Photos and videos, archival historical materials that I appear in will have my face obscured, and that's not because I'm let's be real. I'm a little bit shy, and I think that my content should speak for itself, not necessarily what I look like. So you won't see my face. And basically anybody that participates in this podcast, unless they are truly a public figure, I will offer them the same courtesy. So unless they request otherwise, guests will be allowed to use aliases and have their faces obscured. And the stories that we share will be, we will add enough detail so that you understand what's going on, but we will obscure or embellish enough so that you will never be able to identify actual persons. Because I have an extensive archive of photos and videos, this will mostly be documentary style, which means, again, you won't see my face on screen. This is not a talking head show. This is going to be voiceover with video and photos on the screen. I took a break from motorsports while I was in graduate school, and now that I'm done, I hope to get back involved, at least at the autocross and track day level. So potentially in the summer of 2020, I may have some live posts or updates from racetrack settings. We'll see how that goes, and that's going to depend a lot on available Wi-Fi and some other things, but that's something I'm looking at. Each episode will open with a cocktail of the day. I will try to give a little history on the drink and my personal connection to that drink, the reasons why I drink it or how I was introduced to it. I may or may not include recipes, particularly if it's something more obscure. I might include the recipe, but pretty much I'm going to stick to common mixed drinks that you can get at any bar, plus sort of your microbrew beers and sort of your mainstream types of wine. I'm not going to be here endorsing specific brands necessarily. And in fact, I will try to avoid using trade names as much as possible. Exceptions being drinks where the name is in the drink, such as rum and coke or Jack and Coke, where, I mean, yes, I can substitute cola, but most people call it rum and coke. My plan is to release 2 new videos a month, and that's tentative. We'll see how that goes. It's really going to depend on what my process is for recording the voiceovers, editing the video together, and getting it up on YouTube. A lot of that's going to depend on what else is going on in my personal life, but I will try to make a regular pattern with the 1st and the 15th thereabouts. But again, we'll see how that goes. Episodes will be roughly 10 to 15 minutes in length, and again, if something is longer than that, then I'll break it up into parts. Let's see. Okay, so now we're going to get into a preview of the actual content. Basically, we're going to talk about what it is that I'm going to be talking about in the show, and I'll just start with a little primer about myself. As I mentioned earlier, I've been a functioning adult for roughly 25 years now, but of course my history with cars goes back much further than that. Let's take a walk down memory lane and talk about the cars I grew up with and around. And by that I mean specifically the cars that my parents owned during my primary and secondary school years. 1973 Chevy Impala. That car I do remember. We rode up and down the highway in that one a lot when I was in 1st and 2nd grade. Honda CB400A Hawk. That was my dad's motorcycle. He only had it a year and a half, but I did ride with him a couple times. It was an interesting experience being on the back of a motorcycle at 6 years old. He used to tell me to hook my hand into his belt and hold on tight. And he never deposited me on the pavement, so I guess we did good enough. We had a 1982 Subaru. Bought it brand new off the lot. It was orange and weird. It was so different from the Impala, like night and day, just in terms of size and content and the dashboard and everything. It was just a really weird experience, and Subarus weren't super popular then, so we were kind of oddballs on our block. When I was in high school, we bought a Hyundai Excel, and I ended up driving that car for most of my college years. There will be episodes about that car. It was a love-hate relationship. I'll just leave it at that. They owned 2 used Volkswagen Beetles. Basically, when Dad got rid of the motorcycle, the Beetle became his go-to commuter vehicle. They were cheap, readily available, and he could fix anything on it that broke in the driveway if necessary. So we had 2 Dodge Caravans. Mom drove those, and that was basic people mover package. Family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids, with the tendency to do a lot of road traveling during the summer, so the Caravan was perfect. You could see 4 of us plus our luggage, no problem. And then we had 2 Mazda pickups. We had one in 1987 and then a replacement in 1992, and those were just utility vehicles, firewood, mulch, whatever. Honorable mention, 1969 Dodge Charger. This was my dad's last single guy car. This was something he bought for himself when he got back from Vietnam, and he sold it before he married my mother, so this car never existed in our family necessarily, but my dad used to talk about it a lot, and I have one photo of him leaning up against it in his cool guy pose. My father's been dead almost a decade now, so I can't ask him questions about the car, but based on the photographic evidence, it appears that it was in 1969. It was that pale yellow color, I think they call it Sunfire. It had a black vinyl top, and for some reason it had a luggage rack on the trunk.